I am so excited to be able to share the conversation that I'm about to have. It's with a pioneering yoga master who's created a unique blend of physical practice, Eastern wisdom, and indigenous ceremony to take yoga off the mat and into daily life. Her work has been known to heal anything from addictive behaviors to eating disorders to chronic pain and injury. Her partner is equally exceptional. He is a man of many talents. Amongst them are he's a musician, a producer, a composer, and most interestingly, he's a medicine man. I'm about to have a conversation with Ana Forrest and Jose Calarco. Together, cheekily, we call them Hosanna. So in terms of your journey of self-discovery, what have you found the most challenging? Because we're talking now, and it might be the food element for you. What have you found the most challenging, and how have you, or do you, continue to overcome that challenge?
Well, the thing is that what's happened since Anna and I have got together, we are so busy that time has become a challenge, and we are so sought after, and we're breaking into so many new areas that time for me has become the challenge, because trying to keep this lifestyle up, Anna and I are in a different city every single weekend across the world. So there hasn't been any real challenges, except for me, we're both doing what we love. We're doing yoga, which is part of the healing. We're vegans, which is part of the healing. We sing, part of the healing. We connect to nature, like we were saying before. The first people had a relationship with nature, which has now been lost. We connect to nature. We do our prayers. So things are actually going fantastic. And the biggest challenge at the moment for Anna and I is maintaining our health when we're in such high demand across the world now, with this joint venture of this musical, spiritual, vision questing journey, how we've married, interpenetrated the two worlds of the indigenous knowledge and the yoga world. We've fused that together, and it's become it's become a whirlwind, and we're sort of caught up in a tornado at the moment. So for me personally, it's the time issue. Everything else is absolutely brilliant. Because
how do you manage that? How do you manage that?
Yeah, so we are living the dream fully. 100% we are living the dream of love. And the only problem now is our own personal time, because everyone wants part of our time. Anna may have a different answer. I'm sure she does.
Well, there's that. Then there's also one of the things that I find most challenging, and it's not so much now, but sometimes when I'm tired, when I'm screwed up on time zones, then I go into my habitual stuff. It's like I can easily fall into a pain track and a suffering track, and I just have to catch myself, like, wait, I don't actually live here anymore. And so constantly shifting out of that, using resources, or doing, crossing the vast barrier of asking Jose, like, hey, can you put your healing hands on me? My head hurts or my back hurts. And that's very difficult, to still need help, and to recognize, like, wow, I'm back on that track and I need to shift off of it. To choose, like, to recognize, like, when I'm choosing and when I'm allowing suffering to start to rule me. So that's one thing. Another thing is, like, when I hear about, like, one of our dear friends that's hosting us here has been getting a lot of hate mail because he took a stance against the murders of gay people, and he's gay. And to hear this seemingly rising tide of filth, of hatred that is coming up again in the human race, on one level, it's like, well, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, we are actually working specifically to help the humans correct, to help them find out how to function from a deeper, cleaner, and not so insane place. But then when we hear about these rising tides of insanity and people advocating genocide, I go into overwhelm and despair, but I don't stay there. It's like, that is why we do the work that we do, is like, we're also teaching people that there's a way out of these dark places, these dark, toxic, poison places. There's a way, even when you are not completely solved with your abuse or whatever it is, there's a way of using these practices to come into joy and hope and to feel love, even though you're not fully healed. And that's a really big part of what we're doing. It's like, we're taking, how I view it is, we're taking the river of yoga and giving it a new riverbed to flow into, so it can touch into these deeper other places of the human experience and of what's needed. Mm-hmm. We're doing everything we can to bring what's within our power to the human race, so that they can have better tools, make better choices, and make choices to come into transformation, so that we don't destroy ourselves in this beautiful planet and all the beings on it, you know, from the sweet little echidnas and platypuses and kangaroos to our rainforests, to the wonders that's in each of our heart. It's like, we can choose differently, and that's what we're teaching.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So, you know, the thing that you said about kind of being stuck in a place where you've lived, a place that you've lived in, the what I call the deep craters of sanskaras, you know, the deep imprints that we've had. So when you start to come out of the crater of that, the imprint is still there. It's like that kind of crater may not disappear over time. But I love what you just said about the river, and that if you imagine that actually at some point land gets covered with water, and that crater is no longer something you have to stay in. So if water, so let's say a river starts to flow above it, it carries you. It can, there's that, and that's kind of like, you know, you then have the possibility of the sanskaras, the imprints, they may still be there, the faint memories may still exist, but actually the way into a new place is through these practices of yoga and all these other things that we're discussing here today.
There's another way to think about this that's more of a kinesthetic, biological way, is like, when you learn from your experiences, the hard ones, the great ones, all of that, then you can choose, like, I don't want to be drinking anymore or doing the abuse or blah, blah. But you literally choose to not travel that neurological pathway anymore, and you are learning something new. And the more that you do the new thing, doing your yoga practice or eating clean, then you're carving new neurological pathways. And the old pathways, they grow over if you don't travel them anymore.
Yes.
They grow over just like nature does. You don't travel that road anymore, then some grass and some bush and some sage will come over that. And that's what happens in our bodies too. So the more that you choose, no, I'm not going to do that neurological pathway anymore of going into pain and suffering,
it's like the warrior vision questing we spoke before, how he goes on a vision quest across the desert, and he learns to only entertain thoughts of love and creativity. And the nemesis thoughts, which once were him, and like tired travelers now in the mind. And Anna still has the flashback of those nemesis thoughts, but they are tired travelers. They're well and truly, Anna can live beyond her demons now.
True evolution, really, really true evolution of what we're talking about here, Anna.
So I want to give you a different example, like a pain example. Is like, there are times where my head will go into a migraine, and they've been getting less and less over the many years. And I've been able to control the pain, and I've stopped the epilepsy and things like that. But when Jose was actually able to stay with me, like usually when I go into that sort of pain nightmare, anyone who's around me has just got to leave. And then they eventually leave completely. And for me to be able to be in this agonizing place and connect to love, that was a first.
Yeah.
And so the pain train I've been able to get off it faster and faster, because one, of his courage to stay with me during this, and two, because I was able then to connect to love in the midst of this horrible pain.
Yeah. And that whole thing about having somebody else get you simply just get you without a judgment, i.e. getting up and leaving because it's too much, they can't handle it or whatever. I mean, that's such an uncommon thing, you know, just that is healing in and of itself. If you were not to do anything other than just that, you know, just be present with you in that moment, or, you know, that is just incredibly healing. So I completely get the journey that you two are on, Ana and Jose, and you know, I really appreciate it. It's so valuable to share that with so many people in this kind of way, because it'll be, you know, it is just so hard to come out, you know, move through those places that you think are just not, you can't even go there, let alone move through them, and let alone, you know, share them with another person, and maybe even connect with that person in that moment, you know, in love. So really, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, like for me, there was a lot of shame. Like, I don't want you to see me like this. I want you to see me as the strong medicine woman and your lover and the yoga creative and the handstand queen, and to see where I can't even stop the shaking and the tears. You know, I didn't want to be seen there, and that was a big deal.
Well, I get that. That's the challenge of being authentic. I know that in the New Age field, a lot is said about being authentic and so on, but in many cases, it is lip service, because really, truly being authentic means being with yourself, in moments when you are so ashamed of your, wherever you are and whatever you're feeling, and you know, and then being able to actually say, this is who I am, and, you know, let somebody else see that part of you. That's when the true healing can really begin to happen, because you know, transformation begins with self-acceptance, and that's really what I'm hearing you say. And then when somebody else accepts that, oh my God, that's when transmutation can happen.
Right. So there's that, but there's also, I call it the ecstatic spectrum. It's like those of us that have been on this self-inquiry journey, like we've gone into our hells, we've gone into our demons and stuff. And yet what we also need to come into, continue to evolve and also to come into balance, is learn how to tap into the pleasure spectrum, delight, contentment, self-respect, ecstasy, exhilaration. And that's part of what we bring in too, is like with the music and with the dancing that Jose brings in, some Aboriginal dancing for different purposes, that is so fucking fun. And yet it's very spiritual and it's very fun, because our spirit needs adventure and fun and thrilling things.
Yeah.
And it's not just digging in the dirt.
Right. Good. Glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, our courses are just not all, you know, getting deep and serious. We explore everything: joy, love, laughter. There's outrageous humor as well. And we even have ritualistic dancing where we leave the nemesis thoughts and the nemesis things that have ruled our life. We even have ritualistic dances that go with that as well. So there's all sorts of tools that we bring into Forrest Yoga, not just downward dog anymore.
Yeah.
There's so much more.
We've also created ceremonies. Like, both of us have been steeped in ceremony for decades and decades and decades, and have done many ceremonies. And I had to really have I had to go into ceremony to feel how to bring the ceremonies off of the mountain and into the yoga room, so my people could learn about ceremony, because they're not going to go on Vision Quest on the mountain. Most of them are never going to be in a sweat lodge unless we bring them there, which we do. You know, they're not going to have these experiences of self-inquiry and discovery and connection unless we teach them how to do it. So that's what we've created ceremonies to do, that within whatever environment we're in.
And we're also reconnecting them to music, the arts. A lot of people have stopped doing what they, you know, lots of people that played instruments were actors or dancers. They just stopped doing it, and they don't realize that this is a vital thread in the spiritual connection. So reconnecting them to the arts and a program of insight, and also teaching how to love again.
Do you want to give an example of a ceremony that you've designed especially for Forrest Yoga workshops?
Absolutely. I've designed all the ceremonies for Forrest Yoga workshops. So we begin, like when people say, what sort of ceremony is that? And I say, well, that's a Hosanna, which is our combined Hosanna in the highest ceremony. I've toured over 40 countries with Descendance Aboriginal Dance Company. So wherever we go, whether it's Native American, Brazil, Mexican, Trinidad, we always have a cultural exchange with the First People. So I've been able to, through 40 countries, get an insight into ritualistic and medicines, shamanistic terms, and also being with the Aboriginal people for 30 years, get an insight into firsthand knowledge. So we begin each ceremony with a smoking ceremony. So the Aboriginal people have been using smoking ceremonies for thousands of years because it's believed that the smoke clears all negative thoughts, or evil spirits cannot move through the smoke. So we start with a smoking ceremony.
What does that mean? You're like inhaling something, or you're
Oh, I thought you might have known.
No, I know what we use, like
okay, sorry.
that kind of stuff. We use goop and kind of stuff.
There's a kulamon, which is either, like in Australia, we use the gum leaves and twigs, and we smoke while there's music going on, and we clear the air. Every ceremony begins with a clearing, which is a smoking ceremony. So I've brought touches of the Aboriginal smoking ceremony while there's a beautiful bed of music going on, and people are all in meditation at that time.
And so I want to go back to when you were not clear about smoking. So I use the smoke that is near and dear to my heart. I'll use sweetgrass, I'll use sage, and I also really love to use copal because I'm very connected to the Yucatan and the Mayan people, and copal is one of their main herbs. So when we were in the Yucatan, we got some copal incense, so it makes it really easy because it burns really well. So I stick it in some blue tack on my kulamon and light it, and then I have my fan of feathers, and I brush people's auras, like looking for like where's that tension, and brush it while Jose is drumming or sometimes doing the pull-ups or sometimes putting his hands on people. And we go through the entire room of people and spend a few moments with each one at the beginning of each session.
So it starts with a smoking ceremony, which is based on the Aboriginal smoking ceremony, 4 or 5 minutes. I play a shamanistic drum, Anna does the smoke, and sometimes we have a keyboard player who is giving us this dreamtime soundscape and sending the students into that place I spoke, the second attention. And then when we've got them in the palm of the hands, we come up and we begin with a welcome song, a traditional Aboriginal or Native American or whatever welcome song. After the welcome song, we then do acknowledgement to country and acknowledgement to the ancestors. So we do an invocation of love of the ancestors and spirits of the land. This is the order of procession. And more often than not, there's always this incredible feeling of love and unity in the room, even before we start the yoga class.
And this is live music. We don't do recorded music.
We do everything live. We have all sorts of musicians, didgeridoo, keyboards, violin, cello, flute, whatever it takes to get the person into a place that we call the second attention. So the second attention is just underneath the mental noise. So whenever we perform a healing, and we've done so many healings, and I've seen so many miraculous healings of cured cancer and all sorts of things, nothing can happen in a busy mind. So what we did with the Aboriginal people is we took people into a place called the second attention, which was just underneath the mental noise. So then when the thinker was put on hold, then real healing, vibrational healing could take place by running the music into the injury.
With the healing intent. Like we also use our healing hands, and we
the breath,
call on the energy of the earth, and we channel the music in to help reorganize the electromagnetic field that's going into the area that's Disruptive.
So every, like in a workshop, obviously we can only have a ceremony for maybe 10 minutes at the beginning and 10 minutes at the end. But for a teacher training, we have a 45-minute ceremony, and I write out the ceremonies based on all the knowledge that I've accumulated, first-hand knowledge that I've accumulated from other people, and also my steps into the dream time. And my steps into the dream time, when I first stepped into the dream time, and all it is to enter dreams consciously, where the unconscious and subconscious is married, and there's a continuity of consciousness. And this is what shamans are able to do, walk in the dream. So when I first did that, and the first time I did it was by accident, I thought, wow, I'm going to become the new Messiah. I'm going to be more spiritual than Ana Forrest. But anyway.
It's not going to happen, Jose.
That's why she asked me to write that song. But anyway, yeah. So what happened? Like after my first steps into the dream time, I wanted to connect, and that was back in the mid '80s when the New Age was just breaking out on a limb with Shirley MacLaine, and I was just so excited that I had first-hand experience to the Great Mystery. So I went out seeking in the New Age community. I went to Reiki healers, yoga teachers, this, and all I got was a bunch of white deluded people. And it wasn't until my connection with Aboriginal people that I got some reality. So I bring the knowledge of that reality, not the white deluded people, and we bring this into the yoga room. And our ceremony is a combination, a fusion of many, many ceremonies. We've used Aboriginal, New Zealand Maori, Native American, Brazilian, Trinidad. It just goes, there is so many things that we learned, and we bring it all together in a musical soundtrack that I've written.
What's it called? Do you have a name of the album, or is it's just individual tracks?
Well, I'll send you, I do have individual, I have an album called Creation, which is Descendance Aboriginal Dance Company. And it's a collection of like theatrical pieces with dance, and then just purely traditional songs, just with clapping sticks and didgeridoo. That album is called Creation, but Ana and I are making an album right now, which is a bit more contemporary, but we are going to send you our single, Spirit Eagle.
And we love it.
And Spirit Eagle is a song I just wrote this year, but it's the new anthem of Forrest Yoga. And it's a Cherokee Indian chant, but also with English in it as well. Would love you to share that if you want to with your...
I get to sing it. It's just
and Anna's a singer.
Really? You said, do you want to give us a little rendition now?
Mohali hey aho, Mohali hey aho, Mohali hey aho, Mohali hey aho, hey oh hale, oh hale, oh hale oh. Nobility, the strength to walk with humanity. Yeah. the strength to walk with integrity.
So we use storytelling, song, smoking ceremony, music. Then Anna's yoga comes up, and by the time Anna's done with them with the yoga, and we get them into
She's really cooked them. Yeah, I can imagine people are very, very cooked.
all I can tell you is speak to Indaba. They wrote back and said it's the most mouth-watering yoga experience on this planet.
No, I completely get that. As I said, I already know Anna's practice, and I know how she operates. It's just incredible. I really got it. You guys are creating something which is extremely powerful and truly evolutionary. And it's a pathway for people into using the yoga practice to enter into a much, much deeper healing and connection to their own innermost treasure, the spirit.
Yeah.
But it's also a place to daily get clear on what's your intent. You know, like we set an intent every day. But I want to back up a little bit to when Jose was talking about the acknowledgement, because one of the things that we are consciously doing in every part of the land that we come to is to connect to the spirits of the first people here and bring healing between the children now, the adult children or the young children, and the deaths and the atrocities that have gone on for so many of the first people. Is like we're offering the songs as a healing to those spirits too.
Amazing.
And that's part of the work that we're doing in the world.
Amazing, because you know what, I mean, coming from the Indian roots, and my family, I come from very spiritual, kind of like very, I would say, integrated, spiritually integrated family when it comes to being steeped in the Vedic traditions, and ancestors are very, very important in the Indian context, in the sacred context. So the two things that I hear, which you're introducing. My perception, my view, is that sacredness is largely missing in the West. Almost nothing is sacred these days, right? And so to create that sacred space alone and teaching people how to create an altar or just to have a ritual that they value as being sacred to themselves is already so enriching. The second thing is that, you know, ancestors are almost universally ignored in the West. And one of the things that we do as Indians is frequently and regularly honor our ancestors, very, very frequently and regularly. So that throughout the calendar, Vedic calendar, there are occasions when you can actually turn your attention to your ancestors and make offerings and, you know, and so on and so on. And then there are so many ceremonies that we do in sacred spots, in vortexes, mantras, things that we do, you know, as simple as feeding cows in goshalas, you know, in places where cows are kept, or simply giving clothes to people that deeply need them, or just offering some money, to buying oil and rice and wheat for the year for a widow who can't afford to have it for herself. Little things, you know, but they are always done with the ancestors in mind, to kind of bring peace as Atma Shanti, to invoke Atma Shanti, peace to the soul. And I really connect with what you're saying in regards to working with ancestors, because we stand on their shoulders, and to ignore them, we do so at our peril, and we take away our own abundance and our own prosperity from flowing to us simply because we forgot them.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Australia, before every performance we do, we always acknowledge the local custodians of that land, because it is, was, always will be Aboriginal land. No matter what white people have done on it, it's their land, and we will always acknowledge that and ask for permission from the ancestors. So we have songs and dances like the Good Spirit Dance, where we, first time ever that yoga students have done ancient ritualistic dances dating back
Wow.
20,000 years, not 5,000 years. So these are ancient traditions, which we are so lucky. I'm the director of the dance company, Descendance Aboriginal Dancers, and we are keeping the tradition alive by creating meaningful work around the planet and taking our ceremonies to the four corners of the earth, and now bringing our ceremonies to Forrest Yoga.
Well, I was just talking to somebody who was at one of your events this weekend at Lord's, and they were saying that they did that ritual dance too. I think it was at the end of one of your
Good Spirit Dance, yeah.
Yeah, they were saying they did. Hey! They said it was fun. Yeah, it was good.
It was fun, but that's something that people that don't know ceremony, they don't realize. Like there's tears, there's laughter, there's clapping, there's everything in ceremony. It's not just like, like a lot of the people that are raised in church, it's sort of this horrible, boring droning that you're desperately trying to stay awake for, or trying to take a nap hiding. It's like, that's not what our ceremonies are like. They're compelling, they're engrossing, and they're for each individual that's there and the ones in spirit that are there.
Great, absolutely.
It's a beautiful, beautiful musical journey, yeah. And we don't do the kirtan or om. You'll never hear a kirtan or om ever in a Forrest Yoga class.
Except for, I'm more spiritual than you.
Oh, in I'm More Spiritual, where we send up...
We start out with Om Shanti.
Is that a kirtan? Is that like a kirtan song?
No, not at all. But it starts out with Om Shanti.
But having said that, we have used Indian stuff in the yoga room, because in Sydney, I'm an honorary Indian in Sydney, because at the 50th anniversary of the coming of the light, the Diwali, the Indian tourists made me an honorary Indian because I produced their 50th anniversary show. So, but I have a whole bunch of great Indian performers, and one, Nirmal Jena, an Odissi dancer, we used him at Anna's teacher training, and he blew everybody's mind out with his dancing.
It's
blew
true.
them out.
It's true. It was like he was reincarnating right in front of us, turning into a god and turning into a demon, depending on which way he stepped. It was just like, his soul dancing was just amazing. And so
yeah, no, I get it. It's Kathak or something like that, probably.
So we're bringing artistic direction also. I'm an artistic director, so I commercialize the ceremony somewhat, just to make it accessible for middle-class people, because ceremonies can be very boring and dirge-like, which I found out in Mauritius, where 20 countries had to do a ceremony each in the jungle. And we were last. Australia was last. And my God, if I had to sit through 19 ceremonies like that again, I think I'd slash my wrist,
Good. So, guys, I'm going to bring this to a close. But before I do, what I'd love to do is to ask you each a question. I just want you to give me one thing that if there was just one thing that you could recommend to align with your greatest self, what would that be to align with spirit? What would that be? One thing. Just if people could do one thing today.
If they are an artist or a musician or whatever, like I said, a program of insight into the arts or music, and that can be playing piano, guitar, whatever, but make it a ritualistic thing. But I did have another one, commune with nature every day.
We have more than one.
I'm sorry, Anna and I commune with nature every day. We'll go for a walk into the woods, into the forest, take the guitar and sing ode to the animals and plants. We write out our dreams, bury it at a tree. It's a very ritualistic to bring, and that's a little ceremony that anyone can make up a little ceremony like that. That's my too, sorry.
Great. No, I completely get that. I have something similar called the Cosmic Postbox.
Oh, I like that.
I actually write things out. I write about it in one of my books. So it's like a sacred homa, like a sacred fire ceremony. But I write out exactly what it is. I make it, it's a letter to the universe, to whomsoever, to Shiva or whomsoever you happen to believe in. And it's literally, but being very clear about what it is you're asking for, because the universe does not say no. It only says yes.
Well, it's also interesting in teaching people, like, what is prayer? What is prayer? How to pray. Not only praying when you're desperate, but also praying in gratitude. And learning how to pray is part of what we also are teaching. So I'll do the one thing is, like, my friends, do Forrest Yoga. This is the best soul offering we have. And we will bring to you all these other millions of things that we think are so precious and wonderful and that you don't know how to do. We'll bring them to you.
And I second that. Do Forrest Yoga for sure.
It's a no bullshit thing. You know that because you've worked with some of my very sweet, Christy May and Craig. You worked with fine Forrest Yoga teachers.
At the end of the day, Anna and I are spiritual detectives, investigating the great mystery.
That's true.
Thank you so much, Jose. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm really grateful to you. I'm so honored. And really, the things that you've shared, I can't wait to get it out there because I know that it will make a difference to so many people. And I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully soon.
I loved one of your interviews that you did with that Indian holy man, and you got about 200,000 hits on that one.
Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, yeah.
Brilliant interview. Congratulations.
Thank you. And where can people find you, both of you? What are your coordinates?
Forrestyoga.com. Forrestyoga.com, everything is there. And of course, we'll forward on all the music and that to you, just so you've got more ammunition for your post.
Yeah. We'll read it into this interview for sure.
I hope you will, because it's like we're so proud of Spirit Eagle. We're really proud of all of our songs because we put our heart and soul into them. But Spirit Eagle just rocks.
Gotcha. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Namaste.